Hi, I'm Toby. This is Julian.
Hi.
We're kids in the candy store from Düsseldorf, and today we're going to talk about sound branding. We're the music division of Studio Funk, and Studio Funk is one of Germany's most prolific and well-known places for audio post-production since 1965, with 90 people working in 32 studios in Hamburg, Berlin, Frankfurt, and Düsseldorf. And we offer everything you can think of in terms of audio post-production. Dolby Atmos, brand voices, mix, recording, advertisement. That's us.
One reason we are here today, besides our expertise, of course, is that the ADCE Germany asked us earlier this year to create a sound branding for an upcoming series of podcasts. So we will obviously take a look at that. And before we do that, just so everyone is on the same page, we will give a brief overview. What is sound branding? What can it achieve? What can it be? And we will try to make it not as definition heavy, because there's a lot of literature online. Instead, we will try to focus on personal experience, like stuff we see in our daily work life, because we do that kind of stuff a lot. And try to give you some input what to think about when you approach a project that includes sound branding. The aim of sound branding in general is to add to an existing CI and to make a brand on the one hand more recognizable. You instantly know what that is, for example. And on the other hand, to communicate values and something like aesthetics and taste to your audience without them seeing the brand, instead hearing it. So those are the main two parts. And to achieve this, sound branding can have many different forms. For example, like the sound logo. That's pretty obvious. You can have a brand voice, a voice talent that's always the same in all your communications. You can have a streamlined choice of music. For example, like all your advertisements are songs from up-and-coming artists or something like that. You can include sonification, which is something like you hear in the next room and immediately you know, oh, someone sent out an email using an Apple device. And even stuff like sponsoring music festivals, giving out residencies to artists, all that can be sound branding.
Companies put a lot of effort in their visual CI, and we think that you should give also some heavy love into your audio CI.
The conceptual phase should always come first, at least in how we see it. The concept determines what are you going to do, what is the aim of the sound branding, what do you want to achieve. And you have, in that phase, you lay the groundwork for everything that comes after that. For example, one thing we run into a lot is people come here and they want to have a sound logo, for example. It's a good idea and we start working on it, and then there comes the time of usage, and suddenly it's a surprise for everyone that the sound logo, which is 3 seconds, will take up 3 seconds in every TVC and every radio spot they will produce. And in the conceptual phase of a well thought out concept, there should already be communication about that. What is the media you're going to use? What steps are you willing to take? Is the brand willing to take to implement that sound branding? Whatever that is, it doesn't have to be a sound logo. It can be something totally different. But are they willing to adapt to it? Are they willing to commit to it? And that should be talked about early on. The middle phase is the production and the translation from a brief and a translation from what we want to achieve to fill basically the framework that we established in the first conceptual phase with actual sound. That is the middle phase. And then the last phase, that is how to use it, and a reliable audio branding company will offer you their services beyond the actual production of the audio branding, and will expand their expertise into how to use it.
And the second part?
Yeah, like the creative part.
The creative part. What is really important is give us as much information about how you see your brand, what you want to achieve, because we are the translators who translate everything, every information that you give us into sound, into music. So that's really important for us to have.
To give a good picture.
Yeah. And people often approach us and tell us, yeah, I'm not a studied musician. I don't know if I can express that right. But that's not the problem. Everybody feels something or has a relation to music, to sound. So our job is to translate that into music.
At this point, I think we can switch over to the session, and we will take a look at how we approached the sound branding for the ADCE Germany podcast, and which ways we translated what kind of the brief into sound. So yeah, that's coming up.
So now we're talking about the ADCE sound branding that we did, and the frame set is podcast, and we are in the second phase, second stage, the creative process, and what of our thoughts went into the sound creation. And we initially thought, what terms are we thinking of in connection with the ADCE? And of course, it's excellent craftsmanship, creativity, value, complexity, and simplicity, because excellent ideas can be wonderfully simple, and on the other hand, some ideas seem simple, but behind it there are complex connections. We wanted to combine modern electronic parts with excellent craftsmanship. That's why we asked some first-class musicians to support us in our journey to the final song. And we wanted to have unusual elements. That's why we did something with the prepared piano. We loved the idea of having some very old instrument acting in a new way. The complexity, it has really a lot of small bits going on that are not too in your face, but there's a lot happening, and you can really use a lot of these small, cool things to make, for example, bumpers for the podcast or for the opening music. So you can reduce everything to the bare essentials on the one hand, and on the other hand, you can be really complex.
Yeah, and it should, like the baseline was, it should be musical and it should be modern, but without trying too hard, because the ADCE, the idea of creativity and good ideas is timeless. So we didn't want to make something that is hip right now, or leaning too much into that direction of something that is hip right now but will be boring in 5 years. So in the end, we landed on 4 different composition approaches we produced, and we tried, with each of those, we tried to highlight a different shade of the brief, basically, to have a variation. We also included a look into the future, like we made a version that sits nicely under a voiceover, a version that is very upfront and sets the mood for a podcast. We tried different combinations for sound logos or little stingers that can be used in other media, that can be used in another podcast, that can be used in different contexts, just for us to see if does it work, and also to show it works. So. Yeah, and we will listen to the one that was chosen.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is the session, and the first thing I'm going to do is listen to it. Okay, so far so good. Back here there's all the different elements for later use and what we tried out. This is, by the way, the session, the pre-master session, so there was a lot more stuff in there and it's already cleaned up. And two principles we were talking about earlier, we can show you. The one thing is something simple, which becomes complex once you zoom in, so to speak. And the basic beat, like if you just listen, I will solo just the beat and I will, you can hear it. It sounds like this. On the first listen, it's just a regular beat, but if you look closer, then there's all these little elements, for example, this element. And this rhythm, which is all made of piano sounds and stuff we recorded to make it somehow special and lively, it's underneath the beat the whole time. I will switch now between the part we just heard in the whole beat. And another part where this comes to place is even the main melody, the prepared piano kind of thing. It's the piano recording itself. It sounds like this. And then there's a second layer which sounds kind of the same, but is a sample captured on some kind of tape machine.
So what we talked about, using electronic parts and real instruments, so we recorded real drums, and the beat that you can hear is a combination of both, and we can solo some stuff so you can listen to it.
And that's the simple yet complex part. And the same goes, for example, for the 808, the bass. There's the 808 right here, which is an old drum machine we sampled. And then there's a upright bass. And again, if I show you the same thing in the whole song, you wouldn't notice it. So we try to pack it with a lot of cool stuff and good ideas, musical ideas, without convoluting it, and with always keep in mind that the music has to set the mood for the podcast, and that's its main objective. There's tons of cool little gimmicks, like the synthesizer chords used to be piano, and we tweaked it and processed it until it sounded like a synthesizer, and like the arpeggio, which adds this quirky kind of this one. I could talk hours about that kind of stuff.
Okay, that's it from us. Thanks for watching.
Yeah, bye-bye.